Welcome to Reading and Writing Skills, Lesson 3, Language Use, Second Semester, Quarter 3, Week 4. I'm Mr. Nel Principalo and I'm your teacher for this course. Look at that image. We do have there two persons who seem to have many thoughts or ideas to say to each other. But how come the chat boxes or bubbles have no words in them? You got it right. Because this image is a good reminder to each of us that when it comes to the ideas or thoughts that we would like to say or to write in composition, we have to be particular. We have to think about them all over again and decide which is the best word to be used. So this image is a good reminder about our lesson dealing with language use. Let us find out what is that language use and how is this image related to our discussion dealing with language use. Lesson 3, Language Use. Now that you already know the importance of organization, coherence, and cohesion in creating a well written text, let's move on to another significant factor that a writer should consider the language use. In this lesson, you are expected to determine the essence of proper language use in written text and later to evaluate a written text based on the appropriateness of language use. Just like that image, you have there the so called the need for simple communication skill. So let's find out also how is that image related to the discussion of ours dealing with languages. What's in? Before we proceed to the role of language used in well-written text, answer the following questions first. First bullet. Would it be enough to just consider organization, coherence, and cohesion in writing? Yes or no? No. Aside from knowing that there are four properties of well-written text, definitely considering organization, coherence, and cohesion of ideas alone in the written text will not be enough because we need to consider how are the ideas will be presented through words. So that's why the answer is no. Second bullet. How would improper use of language affect the message of a written text? So what do you think? It will be leading to miscommunication, just like what you have learned in oral communication, that there should be proper use of language because improper use of language leads to communication breakdown because it serves as what? It serves as language barrier between people who are in communication. Okay, third bullet. Why is language as significant as organization, coherence, and cohesion in developing a well-written text? So definitely, language is as significant as organization, coherence, and cohesion in developing a well-written text because without considering it, then there will be communication breakdown. There will be there will be misunderstanding in the message that you would like to communicate to your readers, leading to communication breakdown. And of course, if you will not be considering language use as important as organization, coherence, and cohesion, your effort on giving attention to those will just go to waste. Because though you have the good organization of paragraphs, coherence and cohesion in the ideas in your paragraph, but you neglected the third property of a well-written text, which is language use, then you will not be that effective on communicating your message to your readers, which eventually leads to communication misunderstanding. Okay? So just like the image that you can see by now, it clearly shows to us that what? That a barrier that barrier which can be considered a language inappropriate use of language leads to misunderstanding of people, just like these two persons who have their megaphone as if with only the barrier alone, the language barrier, they seemed they seem that they cannot comprehend that much or that good what each other is saying. So that's the effect of inappropriate language in a written composition. So it leads to misunderstanding. Okay, let's continue. What's new? Study the conversation of three students during the first day of school. Identify which is very formal, formal, and informal. So let us read the lines of Arnold, Greg, and Arnulfo. Arnold says, "What's up, everyone? And you be here, man. Cool." Greg replies, "If you would want me to be part of the circle, it would be my honor. I'll be part of this friendship." Arnulfo also gives his line. "Excuse me, yes, we can be friends, and it's a pleasure for me." So, which line we are going to categorize under very formal? Is it Arnold's, Greg's, or Arnulfo's? So, we are going to have Greg's line. "If you would want me to be part of the circle, it would be my honor to take part of this friendship." So, that is very formal. How about the formal? We are going to have, is it Arnold's or Arnulfo's? So you are correct. It's Arnulfo's line. We are going to have the, "Excuse me, yes, we can be friends. It's a pleasure for me." So that is formal. How about Arnold's line? Definitely, we have there the informal. So the line is, "What's up, everyone? And you be here, man. Cool." So we are able to categorize the lines delivered by Arnold, Greg, and Arnulfo. And as we have done it, meaning to say, we have idea regarding our lesson dealing with language use because we know what are the types of language dealing with the very formal, formal, informal, or when you were in junior high school, you call them the formal, familiar, colloquial, and slang. Okay? So you try to activate your knowledge dealing with those types of language. So let's continue. What is it? Writing is a rigorous activity. No matter how good and substantial the content of a document is, if it's not carefully written as to how you, as the writer, would like to present it to your readers, your purpose will not be served wisely. Hence, you have to bear in mind that aside from considering the organization of your ideas and the coherence and cohesion of your sentences and paragraphs, you also have to regard the style, tone, and clarity of your writing. On this note, you are responsible to choose the appropriate language to be used and to regard the objective of the writing, the context in which it was written, and the target audience in mind. So, what is being said here is that it's not enough that we know the first two properties of a well written text, the organization, coherence, and cohesion, but we should be considering also this third property of well written text, which is language use, wherein if you are that good when it comes to it, you can easily communicate your style, tone, and clarity of your writing or clarity of your message in your composition. And for you to be that good when it comes to language use, always have in mind or remind yourselves regarding the objective of yours on writing it, the context why you are writing it, and who is your target audience. So it's the same with your experience when you wrote your speeches in oral communication, wherein I asked you to consider the target audience. You have there the audience as one of the things to be considered on writing a speech, on delivering a speech. As well as what is your purpose? What is your main objective? Why you are writing that speech or why you are delivering that speech? Also, consider the context, the situation, why you are writing the speech and why you are delivering it and who to whom you will be delivering it, the context, the situation itself. Where is it going to be used? What is it for? Okay? So the context of the composition, okay? And the situation on writing it. It's the same with what? You are a superior in a company, then an ordinary employee sent you a letter, and as you read it, there's something wrong on the words used by that employee because as you read it, it sounds that you are you're what? You are that close with that employee as if you know each other that good, wherein the formality is no longer included. So where's the so-called context? Okay? Where's the so-called context? Wherein that is what? In a work related context. Okay? So I hope it's clear. Again, you have to consider, you have to give regards on objective of your writing, the context, and the target audience. Okay? For you to be good dealing with the third property of well-written text, language use. There are five major issues with appropriate language that should be avoided in an effective and well-written text, as identified by Purdy Online Writing Lab 2020. First, the formality of the language one uses should depend on how formal the situation is and how the writer and the readers are related to one another. So we have here the context on writing the text or the composition. Okay? So just like the example I provided, you have there the superior and the ordinary employee who sent a letter to the superior, and when the superior read it, it sounded that it's inappropriate because the tone of the composition or of the letter or the manner how it was written seemed that the two of them were that close, though maybe the superior is annoyed or was annoyed with that employee because the superior was asking him to provide a letter of explanation regarding his or her performance in the work or in the job. Okay, so that's the first thing to consider. That's the first major issue with appropriate language that should be avoided in an effective and well written text. Okay. Second, jargons or specialized language used by groups of individuals in the same field should only be used if the target readers belong to the same group. So after discussing about the context, now we have the target readers. So who will be reading your written text, your composition? So you should be particular with the jargons, with the words that you will use in your writing, because if you will be using their words that cannot be understood by this set of people because they do not belong to that group who can understand those words, then there will be no effective communication. Okay? So your writing will not be effective. The readers will not understand the message of yours because they are hindered by the words that you use in it or the jargons in it. So look at the image there. So he has an IQ of 75 and a SS of 69 on the CLS of the CELF5 with a PR of 2. He has been in RTL, so I agree that TX and an IEP may be best. So were you able to understand what what does the woman tell you, making use of the jargons that she prepared in her written text? So definitely you were not able to understand it because you are not belonging to the group where that woman or that lady belongs. Okay, so let's go on. Let's find out the remaining three major issues with appropriate language that should be avoided in an effective and well written text. Third in the list, slangs and idioms should be avoided. Slangs are words, phrases, or expressions that do not literally mean what they express, like frenemy, to describe someone who is both a friend and an enemy, while idioms are expressions whose meaning is different from the meanings of the individual word it contains, like to kill two birds at one stone, which means to get two things done with a single action. So as much as possible, in formal communication, in formal writing, we do not make use of slangs and idioms because they what? They do not help writers to come up with an effective written text. Okay? Fourth, we have euphemisms or words that veil the truth shall also be avoided. Examples of which are virtually challenged for someone who is short, passed away instead of died, and other deceitful language. So we do not make use of deceitful language in written communication or in a written text or in a formal written text because they will just hinder the understanding of the reader. So they will lead to misunderstanding. Okay? Then fifth, avoid using any biased language, including those associated with any racial, ethnic group, or gender. So when we studied oral communication, you have learned about offensive language. So we avoid using offensive language. What are those? The biases and prejudice. So as much as possible, we do not use them in written text. So because they are inappropriate language in formal written text or in any written text. So those are the five things to be avoided when it comes to writing text. Okay, so again, we have we have the formality of language, the jargons, the slangs, the idioms, the euphemism, and the use of biases as the five major issues with appropriate language that should be avoided in an effective and well-written text as identified by Purdy Online Writing Lab 2020. Okay? So I hope they are clear to you. If you're the family member of that patient who happened to fall on the ground because of the miscommunication that happened among the doctors, will you file a lawsuit? Because according to the head doctor, maybe, and that is why we left on three. So obviously, there's what? Misunderstanding. So if you will tend to make use of inappropriate language in your written text, then definitely it will be leading to misunderstanding. And the sad thing, it might lead to the death of someone. Just like in the movie Kimidora, where Kimi made use of a certain word and it was misinterpreted by Baron Geisler. Okay? So we have to be particular with the words that we are using, with the language that we are using in speaking, as well as, of course, in writing. Okay? So hence, an effective language can be characterized as. So we have now characteristics of effective language. First, concrete and specific, not vague and abstract. So you should make your readers imagine what you are trying to tell them. They should be able to paint the images in their mind as they go on understanding every single word in your composition or in your writing. Second, concise, not verbose. So, concise, you're not ambiguous. You just what? Limit the use of words in your composition. You do not play in the bush as you present your ideas, no? You're not that ambiguous, okay? So you should be direct to the point. So avoid using more words. Don't be uh don't be that verbose when it comes to writing, okay? Number three or third bullet, precise and clear, not obscure. So you should be precise and clear with the ideas that you present in your composition through the words or language that you are using. So see to it that what? You make use of words that can be understood by your readers. No, not obscure words that are not known to them. So just like what? Talking about slangs and idioms, okay? Going back to concise, not verbose. The use of what? The use of proper jargons. And the concrete and specific, not big, abstract, the language formality. Okay? The number four or fourth bullet, we have constructive and not destructive. So when you write, you should have there a clear objective. Why you are writing? What would you like your readers to get from that composition? No? It's the same with what? Writing an expository essay. That the goal is to what? To enlighten people about a certain topic and not to prove a point. Okay? So you must be constructive and not destructive. And how can you do that? By avoiding using euphemisms or words that have other meanings. No, because if you will be avoiding using such, then you can help your readers understand fully your composition or written text. Okay, unlike using euphemism that it will what it will make them lose their enthusiasm on reading and learning from your text. Then lastly, we have appropriately formal, not slang. So, of course, no, appropriately formal, you should be good on choosing the words or the language that you will use in your writing, in your written text. Okay? The slang, it depends. It depends on what type of composition you are writing. If it's a friendly letter and the affinity is that good, is that close, then be it. You may use slang. But again, no, it will not be what? An effective characteristic of what? Language. Okay? Because we have here uh, the characterization of language. Okay? So language can be characterized by, effective language can be characterized by the following. So concrete and specific, not big and abstract, concise, not verbose, precise and clear, not obscure, constructive, not destructive, and appropriately formal, not slang. Okay? So just like in the image, uh, you have their what? You have their the instruction should be precise, okay? So that these two should be able to understand the instruction being given by the head doctor, maybe assuming that he is the head doctor, okay? Let's continue. What's more, clip an article from a magazine, journal, or newspaper that is related to your strand or specialization. Evaluate its language use by answering the following. So the guide questions. Is the article appropriately formal? Are there jargons? Are there idiomatic expressions? Are there euphemisms and other deceitful words? Is there any bias in language use? Are the ideas presented in the text concrete and specific? Is the article concise? Are the ideas presented precisely and clearly? So, if you happen to have their answers yeses, dealing with jargons, idiomatic expressions, deceitful words, and biased language, then the article that you have dealt with is not a well written article or well written text, because according to what we have studied, we should be avoiding those in a well in writing text. Okay, so are these ideas presented precisely and clearly? Is the article concise? If the answers are yes, then they are what? The articles that you have read are effective or well written articles because they follow the characteristics of effective language in a written text. Okay? So, is there any suggestion you can give to improve the language used in your chosen article? So, if you have noticed that there were jargons, expressions, idiomatic expressions, euphemism, and bias, then you suggest to what? You suggest to avoid using them because you have learned that they are included in the five major uh, language that must be avoided on writing a well-written text. Okay? So let's go on. What I have learned, complete the sentences below. A well-written text has blank. So what is the answer? The answer is it has what? Appropriate language use. Okay, number two. Language use should be considered when writing a text because if not, it can lead to misunderstanding, miscommunication between the writer and the readers or the reader. Okay. The number three, as a writer, I will blank. As a writer, I will observe the proper use of language. I'll keep reminding myself about the five inappropriate language that should be avoided in written text. Also, remind myself about the characteristics of effective language. And also, I should be making myself globally aware or that aware when it comes to monitoring language use in a written text that I'm reading as well as, of course, writing. Okay? So that will be for what I have learned. What I can do. Now that you already learned the importance of language use in achieving an effective and well written text, it's now time for you to utilize this property in your writing task. Suppose that you are an animal enthusiast. Write a letter of appeal addressed to the local government to take legal action against human activities that endanger wildlife in your locality. Please be guided by the scoring rubric below. So check the Google Classroom regarding this activity. Please be guided of this rubric, particularly the criteria we have. The arguments presented is are precise, clear, and supported by facts and details. The writer use constructive and biased and formal language. The writer did not use jargon, slang, idiomatic expression, euphemism, and other deceitful language. There are no grammatical errors. So the score will be 3 to 1. And of course, parts of the business letter are complete. So be mindful of the parts of a business letter. So I hope that you can follow this rubric as you do that activity in your Google Classroom. Okay? Let's continue. Additional activity. Write a three-paragraph expository essay about one of the given topics below. Make sure to consider organization, coherence and cohesion, and language use. Please be guided by the scoring rubric. So number one, how can pets make you happy and improve your life? Two, how to keep a virus-free environment. Three, why do you want to pursue your desired career? So those are the topic to choose from. Expository means intended to explain or describe something. An expository essay provides a clear, focused explanation of a particular topic, process, or set of ideas. It doesn't set out to prove a point, just to give a balanced view of its subject matter. So that's what we mean by an expository essay. Okay? That's at the rubric. For the rubric, the criteria are the following. Writing shows high degree of attention to logic and reasoning of points. Unity clearly leads the reader to the conclusion and steers thought regarding the topic. The ideas presented are precise, clear, and supported by facts and details. Third criterion, that the writer used constructive, unbiased, and formal language. Fourth, the writer did not use jargon, slang, idiomatic expressions, euphemism, and other deceitful language. And lastly, there are no too little grammatical errors. Okay, so I hope you follow this rubric as you accomplish the activity. Check again your Google Classroom. Thank you. Have a good day and God bless us all.